breakaway, and that is exactly what he has done. Froome is happy with the situation. None of his real rivals are in that breakaway. And Steve Cummings at the back of the race, he's got the call up for the Olympic Games. After he won the stage in the first week of this year's tour, a lot of the British supporters, spectators of the race, they were making the comments, why is he the reserve? Why is he not going to the Olympic Games? Well, Peter Kenyon, the former British national champion, he's struggled with form after a broken collarbone earlier in the season, and they've decided Peter's not the best man for the job. Steve Cummings is now going to get his chance at the Olympic Games.
Well, he's had quite a recent crash where he broke his collarbone again and wasn't going to have time. A little bit same situation as Simon Gerrans, although Simon broke his a good 3 weeks after Kenyok.
Bennett in the breakaway for Lotto NL Jumbo. For the Lotto Soudal team, it is Thomas de Gent and Tony Galopin that have made the move. Dimension Data represented at the front of the race with Nat Nelburhan, one of the youngest men in the race.
At least halfway up this final climb and then hit them. Do the same as he did the other day, but I believe he does need to start a bit earlier.
Alexis Villemot's in the breakaway for AG2R Le Mondial. They're firmly of the view that Romain Bardet can make the podium and stretch his way up into the top 3. In the current overall standings, Romain Bardet is in 5th position. He's 3 seconds in front of Richie Porte, and he is 41 seconds behind 2nd place, 3rd place overall. And this is the back of the group who's already feeling the pressure. I didn't think the computer was right with Sepulveda, because Sepulveda, the Argentinian on that team, has got a 5 o'clock shadow as soon as he's put the razor away.
Well, unfortunate for the Fortuneo team. Wrong man in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Still Thomas de Gent setting the tempo at the front. He's prepared to be the one that makes the breakaway work. They're already out to a 3 minute and 34 second advantage, as Rafael Micah is communicating back with the team car. Surely at this point, Robbie, he can afford to say, we've got enough of a leeway, everybody else contribute.
They've definitely got enough leeway that they know this is going to be the one, and that might be in the favour of Breen, who's just been dropped. They're only about 1 kilometre or so from the top of the climb. He may be able to get himself back on over the top. Got that descent and long valley to recover before the next Category 1, so he may get the opportunity to get back on. And De Gent, at least after the top of this climb, will be looking for a bit more assistance. And even though he knows Maker's there and in his wheel, pretty sure he's still going to sprint for the mountain points along the road, because Maker's going to follow him everywhere. But none on this first climb, so nothing to worry about just yet.
But Sepulveda
from Trek Segafredo in the black and white, everybody looking up there and almost saying to themselves, what's going on here?
There's a bit of conversation, just communicating amongst themselves as to who is moving up the road. It's stealth. They've just tried to sneak under the radar. Lots of cheese produced up here as we look at the cows at the top of the hill. Cattle farming and cheese production. And Vincenzo Nibali now talking to the sports director. And they're not going full gas. At this point, Paulo Tiralongo looks pretty comfortable.
Peter Sagan's still riding on the front of the peloton, and they're spread all across the road, so they haven't really picked up the pace. They're just matching what Astana's doing, and these guys are looking around and say, well, come along, come on, this is what's going to happen. Get in the wheel.
In second position with a little bit of pink in his glasses, that's Diego Rosa. Heard a strong rumour on the rest day that he's moving from Astana to Team Sky. As if they need any more reinforcements in the mountains, Team Sky.
He'd be a good pickup, and you've already seen in this edition of the Tour, as in past editions, Team Sky are so strong, such depth in numbers, they just get the peloton in a chokehold. They set such a high tempo that the favourites don't even think about attacking while they're riding, because they're putting everybody on the limit. A guy like Walt Pouls, he could be a legitimate team leader in his own right.
He has made the statement that he hopes next year he'll get the green light from Team Sky to prepare himself specifically for either the Giro d'Italia or the Volta a España, where he has earned the right, based on the way he's ridden this year, to go to one of the big three as the outright leader.
And we've seen them do that. They gave Richie Porte the go-ahead to do it in the Giro d'Italia last year. And what it also starts to give those guys is it whets their appetite for even more, and then to be a leader at the Tour de France. And that's when you see them change teams. A la Richie Porte at BMC.
And he has absolutely made the right decision. And
100%.
more movement from Astana. 2 more riders coming across. Luis Leon Sanchez, Tanel Kangert also looking to bridge the gap. Well, this is an intriguing move from the Astana team. Fabio Aru, of all the riders inside the top 10, it has really only been Astana that have tried to do something about the stranglehold that Sky have had on the race. And now we're seeing a reaction from Movistar, Peter Sagan as well, and the Lampre Merida team going across. Tirolongo, followed then by Diego Rosa. It's Skrivko who's the next in line. This is winner Anacona from Movistar. Roman Kreuziger is also responding from the Tinkoff team. And that looks like it might be Christopher Juhl Jensen from the Orica Bike Exchange squad, who's also in here. We'll wait until we get a slightly closer look. Rodriguez is certainly there in the red colours. Kreuziger at the back of the group with the glasses comfortably changing their position.
Yep, right behind Peter Sagan. Anacona straight to the front, so not really leaving it completely up to Astana.
2 riders from Movistar in this group. Winner Anacona, the Colombian climber, now going through to the front. He has been a stage winner at the Tour of Spain, but this isn't about winner Anacona adding to his list of successes. This is a daring move.
But the whole peloton now onto the descent, because this is the back of the bunch. We know that because Steve Cummings is there. The only other shot you see of him is way off the front. So the peloton on the descent, and everything will melt back together. And that move by Astana, it wasn't so much to attack this climb and split things up. They just want to get things going. And by going up the road like that, they say, well, now it's time, you have to follow us. Everyone was a bit reluctant.
And one rider from Astana in the breakaway already, and that is Lutsenko. So just about everybody on the Astana team, with the exception of Fabio Aru, their team leader, is moving away from the peloton of the yellow jersey with Chris Froome. At least they're trying to. They're closing it down, but this is making the race heat up. One of the big attractions in the last few years at the Tour has been, in the 3rd week, the shortening of stages in the mountains. Like today, down to 146 kilometres. It makes for a lot more action. And if they just continue to roll along, well, it plays into the hands of those, like Bauke Mollema perhaps, who's a little fatigued. If they just take it easy and only race the last climb, then Mollema's got every chance to defend his 2nd place. But if they make the whole stage difficult, then he becomes more susceptible to an attack by Fabio Aru himself on that last climb. And Aru, he doesn't want top 5, he wants top 3.
I really like the way Astana are going about things over the last few days, because they know once the cracks start to appear in some of those other contenders, that's when you've got to make it even harder again to give your guy the opportunity to go on the attack. Like you said, you can't give them an easy ride through to the finish. And this is also playing right into the hands of Richie Porte.
Steve Cummings in the tuck. He likes to be Mr. Efficient. He doesn't waste a drop of energy, Steve Cummings. Alto de Letra, the French national champion, was the rider that was just in front of him. Grivko now on the front, the big, strong Ukrainian, multiple national time trial champion. He's opening the throttle. This is going to be a fast journey now through the valley to the next climb. And all of a sudden, that breakaway group of 20 riders with an advantage of 4 minutes and 14 seconds, I thought they were going to blow out to a 10-minute lead, and we were going to see a race at the front for the stage and a race further back down the road for the placings in the overall standings. We might see it all come back together, because let's not forget, Robbie, there are time bonuses up for grabs for the stage win. 10 seconds if you win the stage, and there's only 68 seconds separating 2nd down to 6th place. So that 10 seconds could become all important.
Rui Costa there in the break, with both his feet out of the pedals, just letting his legs have a bit of a dangle. Lutsenko here at the back, and he would have heard already his team Astana are driving things on the front of the peloton. But they're going from a long way out.
And he's just sitting at the back. So you don't expect to see Lutsenko contribute to that breakaway?
Not a pedal stroke in anger on the front of that bunch for Lutsenko as the whole Astana team moves to the front. Chris Froome just observing and thinking, this is good, saving my teammates.
And you saw coming to the front as well was Fabio Aru from the Astana team. He's easy to spot in the Astana squad. Different helmet onto the rest of them. He's wearing a wide helmet, which denotes him as the leader. And the speed is on so much, those gaps are appearing. They will come back together, but that's always an indication of just how hot the tempo is.
Great shot from the helicopter then, really showed you the speed of the peloton on this slightly downhill section, maybe 1% gradient downhill, but still going a good 65, 70 kilometres an hour coming off that descent.
The Astana team still taking the race on. Angel Vicioso also towards the front for Katusha, wanting to up the tempo.
Tempers can get a little frayed towards the end of the Tour de France. 3.5 weeks on the road with the same guys. And when you're fatigued, little things can get really annoying and upset you.
Look at the change in the body language now at the front. When they were going over the climb and they heard that the peloton was cruising, it was jovial. They were having a bit of a laugh. There was some conversation happening. But now, as they're on to the Valley Road, they're working turns and they're really trying to hold on to that just inside 4-minute lead that they've got.
And I said about the little things that can irk you towards the end of a grand tour like the Tour de France. The guys in this break will be thinking, what are you doing that for? We've made it into the break and you're just going to try and ruin it for us. Astana are just riding their tactic, doing their thing, which is perfectly acceptable. But you've got to put yourself in the mindset of the riders who are fatigued and got themselves into this break and made that effort. They don't want to see it all brought undone because of one other team's plan. It might not seem logical, but nothing is when you're this tired.
And everybody's got their little prize that they're racing for. In some cases, well, the prize isn't all that small. The prize is significant. And now the conversation, Emil Monat is asking Lutsenko to contribute to the pacemaking. And number 26, Lutsenko, is saying, sorry, I've got responsibilities further back down the road. It's my team that's on the front of the peloton. If I work here, I've got to answer to Alexander Vinokurov.
I think more than asking him to work because he knows the situation, he might be saying something like, why don't you ask your team just to stop, let you go? You try and use anything you possibly can that's to your advantage.
The Roc de Voir, which stands at 853 metres with an imposing view over the valley from the top. Not the sort of images that a sprinter wants to see.
Be nice descending down into the valley. And that rock, it looks like something you might see in an extreme sports video with those guys in the flying suits.
Well, this man's been flying in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey, Rafael Majka. George Bennett, the Kiwi, sitting at the back of the group. He has been contributing, but just enough so he doesn't get spoken to by some of the more experienced men in the break.
And Lutsenko now dropping himself to the back of the group. I think George Bennett sort of saying, just stay last wheel, just stay there. But it was Moinard coming back to talk to Lutsenko that sort of forced him further up in the group. If he stays at the back, the others just concentrate on what they need to do. They'll get on a lot better. Ignore Lutsenko. He's under team orders. Forget he's even there.
But if you try and push him further up into the group, he disrupts that pattern as they roll turns at the front.
What you will get in this group at some point is guys that look for a little bit of a rest and they'll go and try and hide behind Lutsenko. Let him play gatekeeper, the one who's letting riders back in, and someone will just come back and have a bit of a rest. But at the moment, they know it's very important to keep rolling smoothly, everyone doing their work, and the gap at the moment is staying stable.
In the black colours for the Bora Argon 18 team, that's Emmanuel Brookman making his way through. He made his debut in the race last year, and he finished in 3rd place on the stage through the Alps that was won by Rafael Micah, who's in the break today. And Dan Martin, the Irishman, finished in 2nd position. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. There's nobody up here racing for the points classification, but just perhaps Michael Matthews will want to pick up a few points, because if he does win this sprint, that will move him from 5th place up into 3rd place. So I'd suggest that Michael Matthews will be trying to take the 20 points on offer. Stands exactly what he's going for, as Thomas de Gent looks like he's challenging to try and collect the points. We'd love the camera at the front as they approach the finish line. It is Michael Matthews with de Gent racing for everything. That Michael Matthews collects the 20 points and moves from 5th place up into 3rd place in the race for green.
Well done, Michael Matthews. Good pick up there. And not quite sure why Thomas de Gent was adamant of getting some points.
He's in 9th position in the race for the green jersey.
Well, there you go. He can move up 2 or 3 places as well.
And that will take him now up into 6th position. So he's made some progress. So that's why he wants the points.
My excuses, Mr. de Gent. Well done.
William Oz, he's reasonably young still, or in terms of racing in the professional peloton, because he was originally a mountain biker. But he showed that he's learning the system pretty quickly. By the way, he acknowledged Michael Matthews and what he was trying to do and said, no, you're fine. You go take those points. Now let's get rolling again.
Looking down at the peloton, Team Astana still on the front. And I'm going to question their tactic a little bit here, because the important thing is not the stage win itself. All right, the 10-second bonus if Aru was to win would be good. But I don't think they should be thinking about so much the stage win, but making the stage hard for the other GC contenders, the ones who look like they're starting to struggle. I question whether this is the place to do it on the flat. I would say they'd be better off cruising on the flat, not worrying about the break, but making it hard on every single climb, because here they're using up a lot of gas of other riders in the team. Luis Sanchez, Grivko, guys riding on the front. I thought they'd be better off making the climbs as hard as possible, making everybody make an effort there, because that is going to sap the energy of the other GC contenders. At the moment, they're just sitting in the slipstream saying, well, this is just making the stage shorter. This is good.
Well, quite obviously, Fabio Aru is very confident. 3rd place on the stage yesterday in the individual time trial. What was interesting about the time trial yesterday, that's Diego Rosa just switching the bottle over, and Fabio Aru is the rider from Astana with the white helmet on. What was interesting to note yesterday, in the top 3 in the time trial, they all had completely different setups on their bike. It was the full time trial bike for Chris Froome, it was the time trial bike without the disc wheel for Dumoulin, and it was the road bike with the clip-ons for Fabio Aru.
And for Richie Porte.
And for Richie Porte. This is the Lake of Annecy, where there's been an individual time trial here back in 2009. It was the last place where Alberto Contador has won a stage of the Tour de France. But this is one of the prettiest little villages in all of France. And that is a tough competition to get to the top of the table of.
I've got to say, Lac d'Annecy and Annecy itself is my favourite spot in France. I spent a few days there, and it's one of the very few places I've said, if I wasn't living on the Gold Coast, I think I could live here.
It's gorgeous. This is Grivko at the front for Astana. Then it is Vicioso of Katusha, followed by Sanchez. Next in line, Paulo Tirolongo. He won't contribute on the Valley Road. They'll save him for the climb.
As the bunch now comes up towards an intermediate sprint, but all the points are gone, so Astana will just continue to ride through there. Talking about the TT yesterday, Matt, and you just mentioned the different bike choices for different riders, and people say, well, wouldn't the others have been better to choose the same setup as Chris Froome? The riders make the choice based on what they're most comfortable with and what's the most efficient. And you've got to look at, for guys like Chris Froome, Tom Dumoulin, when they climb, they stay in the saddle almost all the time. They're in the seat climbers. Richie Porte, Fabio Aru, they're more out of the seat, up on the pedals. It's very hard to ride that style efficiently on a time trial bike. It actually makes you go slower. So for the The toughest part of the course, where it's really going to make or break your TT, win or lose you the most time, you've got to choose the bike that's the best suited to your riding style on that part, and that's why the difference in bikes.
Joaquin Rodriguez is a case in point.
Perfect.
He organised for a change of bikes. He rode the full time trial bike on the first 4 kilometres, which were relatively flat, and then he made that change. And he said against the specialist on that opening couple of kilometres, he could have lost 25 or 30 seconds. The bike change was worth it, and then he's always out of the saddle when he's climbing. There's a look at the village at the other end of Lake Annecy. It really is stunning. Easy access to all the great ski resorts of France. Lots of activities on the water throughout the summer months. Thankfully, the sun has come out and cleared things up, and we cross our fingers and hope that it stays that way. But the humidity is something to battle with.
It can change so quickly here in the mountains, Matt, and the forecast is for thundery showers throughout the day. The riders very lucky up until this point. Dry roads, clear skies, sun. But as they come towards this point, the cloud is a lot heavier around us here. Mont Blanc just over behind us, still shrouded in heavy cloud. So it could open up at any moment, at any turn in the road. They could come around the corner and get drenched.
And how dramatic was it into Andorra? That was a day where at the start of the stage, everybody was battling the heat, and they were putting stockings down their back with ice blocks in them to try and stay cool. And then at the end, they were trying to take cover from the hailstones. And one of the nicest images from that stage, as we head past another part of the fan club for Peter Sagan, one of the really nice images that day was Jalinson Pantano, who's in the breakaway today, went across the finish line holding an umbrella that he'd been given by one of the spectators. This is Marcus Burkhardt, trying to stay cool, followed by the former world champion Rui Costa, who was second on that stage up into Andorra behind Tom Dumoulin.
Now, Matt, look at that time gap now, down to 3 minutes 20. It was over 4 minutes, up to 4.5 minutes originally when Astana started to set the pace on the front. The gap stabilised at just a few seconds under 4 minutes off the descent, through the valley, through the sprint and along the lake. But now they've hit the climb, it's dropped by 30 to 35 seconds. This group is going to start to panic a little bit, I think, and the better climbers may need to attack the rest.
And the ones that are the obvious candidates are Pantano and Micah, who have attacked together a couple of times before.
But then the difficulty is there's another long valley, and it's about 18 kilometres of valley road after they get off this climb and down the descent. So almost 20 kilometres through the feed until they get to the next climb. So they'd be tempted to go, but they'll want to be able to use the rest of the group all the way through the feed zone up to about kilometre 70, 68, where they hit the category 2 of another Fauclaz, Col de Fauclaz de Cuillege. And that's where they can think about offloading them, and certainly on the Monte de Buisson, the big climb of the day.
This is Angel Vicioso at the front for Katusha. He went across the finish line in first place on a stage at the Giro d'Italia about 14 years ago when he ended up getting disqualified and Mario Cipollini became the stage winner. This is Sergio Anal, who sits just behind Wout Poels. The rider from Katusha, the lanky rider that's just on the right-hand side, the tallest of the Katusha riders, the man that won the stage on stage 17 to Finot Emerson. He became a father on the first day of this year's Tour de France, but he's yet to see his daughter in person. He's only seen her on Skype so far. No doubt he is really looking forward to getting home. This is Kijalowski. And now just slipping off the back, this is Marcus Burkhardt, who's losing contact with the breakaway group, but they're nearly over the top, 700 metres to go. And Burkhardt will suffer to the top of the climb and he'll rejoin on the way down.
Can descend Marcus Burkhardt, and a few days ago he reported his top recorded speed on the stage on a descent, 130 kilometres an hour.
That was in response. Lee Howard had posted 122 k's per hour as his maximum speed. Everybody's jaw dropped, and Marcus Burkhardt responded with, "Were you using your brakes?" And then showed he's at 130.
I was going to say, I thought he said something to the effect of, "Were your brakes rubbing?"
Yes. Almost at the top. Kieselowski from Tinkoff is leading, and he is leading Rafael Majka, who is at the top of the table in the race for the King of the Mountains classification. It's De Gent who's in second place. At the start of the day, it was an 83-point gap between those two. And Thomas De Gent is fighting for every prize on the road. Villemos is in the white and blue colours. Into the drops for Thomas De Gent. This is the sort of sprint to the top of this climb where Thomas De Gent would be the favourite. And it would be Rafael Majka. And you see here the little flick of the head from Rafael Majka. Perhaps he's prepared to concede at just a couple of points to Thomas De Gent without wasting any energy, because he's got an 83-point advantage to be able to play with. As they go over the top, that's exactly how it plays out. So De Gent, he collects maximum points. But for Rafael Majka, he only concedes 3 to the man who's 83 points behind him. But he saves energy in the process.
Yep. Now, 80 points behind Thomas De Gent. But all Majka has to do is follow him all day long, follow him over each KOM. And I would say then that the competition is pretty much wrapped up for the Polish champion.
Yeah. He's not going to be beat in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. And Emil Monar from BMC is at the back of the group because he knows his teammate, Marcus Burkhardt, is just 100 metres or so behind.
I thought he was at the back of the group because he was struggling. Maybe a bit of both.
He won't lose contact with the group. He'll just stay there and wait because he might not back himself to keep up with Marcus Burkhardt on the way down. But now we're seeing Rafael Majka, who's done this a few times. They've gone over the top, and Majka is a very good descender. And the man that is in second spot, that's Villemos, who's also pretty quick when it comes to going downhill. Greipel and Howard suffering up the climb. He's a very good climber for a man of his size, Andre Greipel.
So incredibly strong.
Jürgen Ruhlens was with him. How reliable as a teammate is Jürgen Ruhlens? Not just when it comes to trying to win, when it comes to trying to survive.
He's there everywhere for his team leader, for the leader of the sprint component of the team. And to have a guy like Ruhlens with you when you're being dropped to just help pace you and then close that gap down as you come over the top, or even have to chase for a little bit longer than that. Ruhlens is your man. Classic specialist, but so strong. Coming up.
Item number 2 on the to-do list today. Tick. Complete. 3 more to go. And Rafael Majka taking some big risks on the way down. The rider in third position, Villemos, who won a stage last year, when he was picked up by one of the smaller French teams, they didn't have much of a budget. So they went with the money ball strategy. And instead of looking to the amateur ranks who's riding well on the road or onto the track, which is the traditional path, as we just heard the scraping of a peg from one of the motorbikes going around the corner, he was a good mountain biker that never really shown much interest in the road. So Stefan Hurlo, a former yellow jersey wearer at the Tour de France, figured, you come with me and I'm going to make you my protege and see if I can develop you into a good road cyclist. Pretty good investment. They paid him minimum wage for 2 years. It's worked out okay.
So far, so good. Stage winner on the Mur de Bretagne last year, where he just rode away from the rest of the peloton, one solo.
It was a brilliant ride. He got the better of Dan Martin, was in second place. Thomas De Gent in the red colours from Lotto Soudal. He's always up for taking a few risks. He's got a funny breathing action, Villemos, when he's climbing. He looks a bit like a goldfish in the way he opens his mouth, and it's really deliberate and concentrated the way he breathes. And you've got a real theory on breathing when you're climbing, and the exhale being as important as the inhale.
You've got to make sure you force everything out to make sure that when you refill your lungs, it's fresh, oxygenated air. Not a half breath out and still have some of that carbon dioxide loaded air in the lungs. Full breath out, your body will do the rest to get it all in. But it's also about relaxing enough to let it in, breathe all the way down. I always tell people, breathe as if you're trying to breathe all the way down to your belly button.
And it wouldn't hurt to learn singing as a kid to help with that breathing. as breathing is all important for the vocals. And when you watch Villimos, and we'll get a chance to later today, have a look at the way he breathes.
I think Richie Port's original sporting life stands him in very good stead as far as breathing techniques going, because he was a swimmer and a triathlete. Now, might have been 10 days, 2 weeks ago now, I was talking about Richie Port, and when he was originally with the Saxo Bank team, and at training camp he amazed his teammates. They were doing some cross-training in the pool, and Richie swam a length underwater. Stuart O'Grady sent me a message. He said, I was there, it was incredible, but it wasn't 50 metres. He turned at the end and started going back. It was 70 metres underwater.
They called him the fish. 34 seconds. Those three off the front of the breakaway group have opened up. They're moving quickly down the descent. And the peloton there at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Astana still leading the charge. Rafael Micah is the one that is going the quickest. The other two are just trying to keep up. They're sprinting out of each corner as Rafael Micah is clutching and refreshing on the straight sections, and then just using less brakes through the corners, and he's not making any mistakes. A few of the sprinters taking some risks as well, down through the convoy, trying to rejoin the peloton before they hit the valley road. Lee Howard and Andre Greipel, they climbed well to get over the top of that one.
And Marcel Kittel, he is one of those sprinters, along with Dylan Groenewegen, trying to make his way back on. And the good thing is, with it still such a large peloton, they start to single out. It's almost as if the peloton is, in a way, coming back towards you as they single out. Guys on the brakes a lot more. Problem is when you get to the bottom of the descent and everyone's trying to bunch up again, you need to be riding on the flat nearly 80 kilometres an hour just to follow the wheels chasing back on. And that's when you see those splits, because most of the guys here can't ride 80 kilometres an hour on the flat, wound up off the descent. They just cannot keep that pace up.
One of the great images of the Tour de France, one of the great images of bike racing, is watching the peloton snake down through the Alps.
And you see what I mean here at the back. You see the single file line, and then further back in the bunch, you're starting to single out, heavier on the brakes. They're 2 and 3 wide, and as that starts to string out, as they're really slowing down, much heavier on the brakes into the corners, gives guys just off the back the opportunity to close that gap right down, get back in contact with the bunch. It's just that chase off the bottom they got to contend with.
Micah, Villimos and De Gent.
This is what we spoke about earlier, Matt. The better climbers in this group will be getting concerned with the gap coming down and be keen to go on the attack, but wary of this 20-kilometre valley. I'm not so sure Maker is intending to go on with this just with the three of them, but just give the rest of this group a real hurry up. Make sure they ride as fast as they can on this downhill. Get them working together. Leave them a bit further into the stage.
And he hasn't wasted any energy to open the gap. He's just been better technically on the way down. He hasn't had to pedal harder. So now as he hits the valley road, well, he might be able to kick the clutch in ever so slightly, just back it off a few heartbeats, and then the others have to work harder to come back across to him, and he again has saved a bit of energy. Or perhaps he's going to do a Rafael Micah and just go full gas.
And well, at the moment, they're just out of sight of that chasing group. George Bennett, he was sitting at the back. So Bennett not bothering to follow them up and through the KOM and down the descent, just biding his time. Safety in numbers, staying with the biggest part of the group. And I don't imagine for a second they're content to let De Gent and Maker and Villimos ride away at this point. Pretty sure they'll chase them back in just a couple of kilometres. This is the group with Marcel Kittel. This is the back of the peloton. And you see that gap in front of the boys in blue from Etixx Quickstep. Bit of a gap, but there's the back of the peloton. So they're getting back in touch. And they've still got a little way to go on this downhill. About another 2.5 minutes of descending.
This is Guarneri, Giacomo Guarneri, the lead-out man for Alexander Kristoff. And the direct energy rider who was very ginger on the brakes, that was Fabrice Gendebos, who's had a fall in this year's race, and I think his nerve has been rattled.
And that could be the last he sees of the peloton today, because going down that slowly on your own, you're not going to be able to cross that gap again. Once you get onto the valley road down here and the bunch is starting to regroup, he won't be able to close that down. He'll suddenly find himself 2 minutes behind.
And just for your reference at home, Robbie McEwen has delivered that message, shaking his head like a school teacher, not impressed with the students' performance.
But I understand, when you've had a crash, it gets in your head that the last thing you want is another one of those. And it can make guys overly careful, overthink it, and put themselves off the back.
Lutsenko it is, number 26, who continues to just play the role of the policeman with this group. Well, not so much the policeman, but more just the forward advance for the attack to come later on from Astana. Michael Matthews having integrated the breakaway group. Thomas again pushes on at the front in the red colours. He always looks for the opportunity to split things up. As we've mentioned, each time he's been in the breakaway, every win he's had in his career has been from a breakaway. He is tenacious, and as Robbie always says, stubborn. The stage win to Mont Ventoux, unfortunately for him, it will be overshadowed by the highlights reel that is sure to feature the crash into the motorbike with Richie Porte, Bauke Mollema and Chris Froome, and then Chris Froome taking off on foot. The benefits of having grown up in Kenya and done cross-country running as a school kid.
I bet he never did the cross-country running in carbon-soled bike shoes.
No, I'm sure he didn't.
Putting the new CD shots to the full test on the Mont Ventoux.
Villemos. Just the check across the shoulder to make sure that the others will continue to come through. An interesting point made there, Robbie, that you never see a bad descender amongst the sprinters, but occasionally you do amongst the climbers, as these three now are about to be caught. And what we spoke about before was Rafael Mike, who hasn't wasted any energy. The others have spent some to bring him back. So it's worked out a pretty good move, I think, on the way down. As a guy who had a reputation for being one of the best descenders in the pro peloton, for you, what's the key to getting downhill quickly?
Confidence and desperation.
From a technical aspect.
Still desperation, because it gives you the confidence not to think about the dangers of it, but just doing everything to get back in touch. But technically, it's hard to train descending as you would in a race, because in a race you've got the whole road. When you're out training, you've got to follow the road rules and stick to one side. So it does make it a little bit harder to train apexes, entry, exit, that sort of stuff. But even when you're only using one side of the road, you apply the same sort of principles. And just imagine the road's only half as wide. And a really important thing about descending, like driving a race car, is eyes up. Pick your point. Make sure your entry speed is right. Once you've picked that point, it's eyes up to the next point, to the apex. Once you've lined it to that, you don't keep watching that point till you're there. Your eyes up to the next point, and you look exactly where you want to go, but you don't wait too long to look there. You got to line it. You're on line. Eyes up, next one. Eyes up, next. So always drawing a line in front of yourself and looking at where you want to be. Never look at where you don't want to be is the number one rule, and I've said it a number of times. I'll said it again.
Which is effectively the message that came from Nicola Portal. Have your eyesight as far ahead as possible where you want to go. Astana, they're calling it off somewhat here. They're just backing it off a fraction. Vincenzo's having a bit of a smile and a laugh. Vicioso at the front in the red colours for Katusha, asking exactly what he's required to do. One of the older riders on the team. And I wonder if he'll retire at the end of this season alongside Joaquim Rodriguez, who was the reason that he's on the team, because Vicioso is 2 years older than Rodriguez.
It's getting to be about that time, but more and more these days we see riders still racing approaching 40 years of age. Greg Henderson is another one of those. Jens Voigt, Chris Horner, they both raced into their 40s, 42. I got a month shy of my 40th birthday when I retired. So you see that more and more these days, riders being able to go through to that age. Where go back 15, 20 years, you didn't see many go beyond 35.
This group now working well together. Bookman at the front, the black colours. Tony Gallopin was in second wheel there. He was concerned that others from the group weren't going to roll over, even though they were coming through. So he made it sure that they maintained their momentum and went straight back over the top of Bookman. That's a guy who's dedicated to this group surviving. The Anzac Alliance, the Kiwi and the Australian, Matthews and Bennett. Burhan, lunchtime in the valley. This is an important time to eat because it's difficult to do so when you're climbing.
Yeah, you've got to take the opportunities when it's flat, when it's a little more relaxed. But you see at the same time, the group not working smoothly together. A lot of passengers in the group, and they're not getting the leeway that they require. With 85 kilometres to go and just 3 minutes lead, they've got to try and build that up through this valley, because after they get to the end of this valley section, they're onto a Category 2. Immediately then, they start the All Category climb of the Bishan. It's not going to be enough. I think all of this group will get brought back, and that's why Astana is doing this work. Going for the stage win as well, just trying to make the race that little bit harder, a little bit more stressful as well for everybody. It's mental energy they're using. They have to ride better position, think about everything they're doing. It's all part of it in the last week of the Tour de France.
It looked like Astana were going to just ease it off ever so slightly, but now they've sent Grivko to the front once again, and he's got himself leaning over the handlebars in a time trial position. The shoulders are rocking. They're starting to pick it up again, because Grivko's not going to offer them a lot when they're climbing. There's a split in the breakaway, and this has been caused by the lack of cohesion. Kieślowski, Bookman, Sepulveda, Matthews and Roland have missed the splits. They'll rejoin, but they're going to waste some energy in the process. Bennett continues to talk. He wants to make the group work. This is his first Tour de France, but at the very least, George Bennett is going to be on the highlights reel. On the climb to Andorra, when he did the hip and shoulder in a surprise defensive rugby move when we saw a spectator step out in front of him. He had nowhere to go. He didn't have time to turn, and he managed to stay upright. The spectator unfortunately went down, but by all reports was okay.
Well, that's good news here. The spectator was okay, because as George Bennett said in his own words, that spectator got sunny billed. A lot of people who follow rugby say, I found it a bit more Jonah Lomu.
Well, then you'd be really injured, and the spectator may not get up. And may the great man rest in peace. They love him in France, Jonah Lomu. The Astana squad still on the front. They have been the ones in the last couple of days prepared to take the race on, more so than anyone else. A few other teams now milling towards the front. Mikel Shah is the rider from BMC. Van Avermaet is there also for BMC. Caruso, and then there'll be Port.
Taking quite a back seat there in the peloton is Team Sky. It's probably the furthest back we've seen them so far on this Tour de France. But I can guarantee you, once they get over the top of this climb and start the next one, they'll be more present and back to business.
Furthest back we've seen them, third in line. And you're right. Interesting. Kieślowski was about to go to the front of that group and drive the tempo, and Rafael Majka gave him the hand signal. Don't waste energy. As long as Thomas de Gent is on the front, let him keep working. They're about to go over the top, and again, Rafael Majka is allowing de Gent to collect the points. This is only a Category 2 climb. So again, he just gets 1 point closer.
Did you see the little wave from Thomas de Gent there? Thanks.
Thank you. Pantano's not interested in those points. He wants another stage win. 15 wins for IM Cycling since they announced that they'll be ending at the conclusion of the season, and they did that in the middle of May. And those wins include a stage at the Giro and a stage here at the Tour. It was a brilliant win by Roger Kluge at the Giro d'Italia this year. Equally as good, if not better, by Hullinson Pantano at the Tour de France, with Rafael Majka in second spot. And a big day in the mountains.
Well, the IM cycling team has had their best performances of their short existence since the team announced that it would be stopping at the end of this year. They've won the Tour of Belgium with Dries Devenens, won a stage in the Giro, they've won a stage in the Tour. They've been represented in a heap of breakaways. pressure's on the riders to find a contract for next year.
If you're in one of those cars following the race, you would not want to suffer from motion sickness. It's not a job that you'd hold on to for very long. Once again, the sprinters under pressure. This is Marcel Kittel. One stage win, and it came in a photo finish ahead of Brian Coquard. Grivko is in the blue colours of the turquoise colours of Astana. He's got the yellow glasses on. Alongside him in red is Angel Vicioso, one of the oldest riders in the race, 39 years of age. The oldest is Matteo Tessato at 42. I think Greg Henderson is just about a month older than Angel Vicioso. This is Guarnieri once again losing contact, even with his sprinting pals that he goes head-to-head with on the flat stages. John Degenkolb is also there in the white colours of Giant Alpecin.
Greipel, Seberg, sprinter, lead-out man. Kittel, Kaiser, sprinter, lead-out man. Degenkolb was also there.
Marcus Burkhardt making the most of the descents.
Just happens naturally on these stages. Riders of similar abilities end up together and just battle their way on. But those riders that we just saw being dropped, they'll just try and battle on one more time. Get another little free ride through this little bit of valley coming up. Then they can really let go.
And the strategy for Pantano at the back here, since they brought back that three that went off the front with De Gent, Villemos and Micah, he's just been sitting at the back. And now that the lead is out to almost 4 minutes, I get the impression he is conserve until they do get on to the next climb. I thought he might have tried to string them out a little bit down here, but Marcus Burkhardt is taking care of it for him.
He really is trying to string him out down here, taking maximum risk. Burkhardt knows what's coming up, the ore category climb of the Monte de Bissan. And he's thinking, I've got to get away from this group, get a little bit up the road. But he's also got to realise it's a 12.5 kilometre climb, and whatever he does from this point, the gap's never going to get big enough when the likes of Maker and Pantano start to go up a gear and get rid of the dead wood, or what they consider the dead wood in this bunch. He's got a gel in his mouth, little straight section of road, squeeze a bit more in.
After yesterday's stage, he tried to put a bit of pressure on Tom Dumoulin because he was asked about the Olympics. Is that the reference point for the Olympic Games? He said, not really. I think stage 13 was. Tom Dumoulin is the favourite. He's the man to beat in Rio. I'm not sure whether he really believes that, because I think Chris Froome is the man to beat. I think that is part of just trying to deflect the pressure, because he's dealt with a lot of it in July.
He deals with pressure all year long in the build-up as the favourite, the defending champion. Chris Froome's already got an Olympic silver medal from 2012 in the time trial behind Sir Bradley Wiggins. I'm sure he'd rather have a gold one as well. And just quietly, he'll be believing in his chances. Tom Dumoulin, yeah, maybe is the favourite, but not overwhelmingly on the course that they're talking about for Rio.
Definitely a battle between those two, as they are the standout favourites. The others, well, they're second-tier contenders. And there's a look at the points over that previous climb. So Thomas De Gent, he gets 2 points closer to Rafael Micah. The gap now is 79 points between those two in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. Things are all going according to plan for Rafael Micah, not wasting any energy and just protecting his position. De Gent collecting the points. It won't change things in those standings. That's risk minimisation for Chris Froome. Giving a little bit of distance. He'll have a teammate behind him as well, just in case anything does happen. So there's someone there to stop automatically. Andre Greipel at this point will be very pleased. They've already regained contact.
It'll be a very long, thin line. So you see Astana pushing the pace on the front, complete single file throughout the peloton. Like I said before, as the bunch comes down this descent, they need to start singling out to be able to take the corners properly. Riders got a break to sort of drop back into line, so the peloton almost drops back towards the sprinters chasing on, regain. There's almost a sprint to stay in contact once they hit the valley floor. but they're still there. That's the important thing.
And once they're through this roundabout, that's the dangerous part of the descent behind them. So another moment where Chris Froome can breathe a slight sigh of relief, but there's no complacency. And Chris Froome, worth noting on the way down there, Robbie, just one rider from Sky in front of him, the rest of the team behind him, just in case anything went wrong. Everybody was around him for support.
And not by chance, everything planned, minutely planned at Team Sky. They know exactly what to do and when. It gives Chris Froome great confidence. He doesn't have to steer anyone. They know what's expected. They're being reminded through the race radios of what they're expected to do. So Chris Froome can concentrate on the one thing he needs to do and just ride to the top with all the rest. Just mark them.
And the team's meticulous preparation came to the fore yesterday. At the individual time trial, Chris Froome thought the best option was a road bike. And the team went through all the numbers. They assessed everything, power outputs, gradients, potential wind, flat sections, etc. And they made the decision for him to ride the time trial bike. And he won by 20 seconds. I'm not sure the bike was the difference at the end because the gap was so big. It was the person on top of it. But that's the level of detail that Team Sky pay to everything in the race. Famous for their phrase, marginal gains.
And also would have taken into consideration that the type or the style of climber that Chris Froome is. He stays in the saddle, so it's a good choice to go on the time trial bike. But I'm sure they had it set up just a little bit higher in the front end yesterday than they would for a flat time trial, just to keep him a little bit more upright, so he's got the right angles through his hips to be most efficient on the climb. Maybe not the most efficient on the flat part aerodynamically, but weighing everything up, and that's just what they do at Team Sky.
Breakaway.
Adam Yates, we heard that there was no problem. It was just a mechanical problem. He did come back quickly, and it looks as though Micah now wants to try and break the leading group up a little bit early, because the main field, the forward group, is only 2:21 back.
Yes, he's starting to put everybody into difficulty. Michael Matthews there in the dark blue jersey, he slipped off the back. Tony Martin, not a surprise, he's not really one of the big mountain goats in a situation like this. And the other rider slipping away there, 118, Lawrence Tindem. I just spotted him slipping off the back of the group. So the next man to slip off the back of that leading group, Marcus Burkhardt, one of the teammates of Richie Porte. And I think this toughening up of the race today will also suit the Australian as well, because currently he lies 108 off second position and 44 seconds off the third position. And he said and made it very clear that his aim in these final few days is to get to the podium. Little acceleration there from Villermoz. Riding has been selected now to replace Thibaut Pinot at the Olympic Games, and now struggling at the back of the group, Sepulveda, a rider who had hopes of a high finish in the overall standings, but at the start this morning he was almost 2 hours behind. These accelerations now are really starting to rip apart the leading group, but the pressure is still coming on here from Team Astana. That's Luis Leon Sanchez in first position. Now the front from the man who leads the King of the Mountains jersey, Rafael Maica.
And it's the Spanish rider on Coffice here, David Navarro, who's gone after him as well.
Tony Gallop position, Navarro in third place. Yarlins and Pantana, well, in fourth position there in the white IAM cycling jersey, Phil. He's just sitting there watching affairs.
Well, this is Rafa Maica. He's given away on the previous two climbs to Thomas Kent. This one I think he wants. The reason Galopin's getting involved, he's trying to stop anybody gaining points on his man who sits in second place, Thomas Kent. But Micah only needs this, and the King of the Mountains is a done deal, and he's got a little bit of a gap.
Well, he's got a little bit of power as well, Phil, because this is not really attack. This is a slow acceleration, but he's gone faster than anybody else. He's thrown down the gauntlet to them and said, look, if you guys feel strong in this breakaway group here, you better try and stick with me if you can. And I think Jens Voigt a little earlier on was just saying how powerful this man looked, and I think what we can think about here is, yes, he has won 3 stage victories in the Tour de France in the past, but he's yet to add one to his account this year, and I'm pretty sure he would like to add a stage victory to his more than likely overall win in the King of the Mountains competition.
Well, he won it 2 years ago, and he's going to win it in 2016 for the second time now as he comes up. This is the all-category climb. It gives 25 points to the first rider over the top, and that will take his total to 209 points. Nobody can reach him now.
So there we go. And just sitting towards a little bit further back down the group there is number 1, Chris Froome. Alongside him is Adam Yates. Just up over towards the top on the right-hand side, I just spotted Louis Meintjes. He's having a quiet ride here this afternoon. He's quite happily sitting right up there. He moved up yesterday, one of the few riders to actually change his position yesterday in 9th place. He's got a 3-second advantage over Dan Martin, but a 3-minute deficit in the best young rider competition over Adam Yates. 41, Romain Bardet. I wouldn't read too much into him sitting at the back. Now look at this. I have to say that the man on the front there, Luis Leon Sanchez, had done a phenomenal amount of work for Team Astana, which leads me to think that Team Astana are really going to throw caution to the wind on this final climb. They will try to launch a move either with Vincenzo Nibali or Fabio Aru, who sits in 7th place overall. There's Meintjes over on the left-hand side, sitting with many of the other overall contenders. Nairo Quintana in the yellow helmet. You can see him just moving up on the outside. Hardly mentioned the name of Nairo Quintana at all during this afternoon stage. He's been hiding in that main field, just sheltering from the wind, just keeping himself comfortable up towards the top of this climb now. Marcus Burkhardt over the top, and he's just about to get picked up by this chasing group with all of the overall contenders in it. And that will be good for Richie Porte. Some assistance. Well, the gap has come down pretty dramatically now. It's 1 minute and 50 seconds. Rafael Majka has continued a little bit over the top there, having picked himself a maximum 25 points up. He's decided to have another little tick on the descent.
Is Pierre Rolland continuing his pressure at the front?
Well, this is a move now with a possible long raid to try and get the first stage victory in this year's Tour de France for France. Pierre Rolland makes the move. He's, let's just, you know, that the acceleration from Pierre Rolland, Phil, it came from the front end of that group, and it really caught everyone unawares as he made the move. He realizes as we go over this last little incline that shortly we will start a fairly long descent down towards Saint-Gervais, and the man who's made the big reaction to come across to him is a man who's been on the move many times in this last week of racing, former world champion Rui Costa.
Rui Costa, yes, you're right, a former world champion in conditions like it is just now in rain. So Pierre Rolland, he's made the move. He's over the top of the climb. This is a sort of false, very short descent. Now there's another little stabbing climb, but we're gradually downhill for some way now before the road up to the finish. But there are some nasty little kickers which are going to hurt, and this is one of them. But Costa's got across.
Well, this could be good for a long move by Pierre Rolland. He had hoped and he had dreamed of a top 10 finish in the overall standings at the Tour, but I think he's much too far back, because at the start of the day, Rolland was sitting in 16th place, 22 minutes 51 seconds back.
But he had that horrible crash in the opening week. It really did. We had pictures of him riding along with barely any clothes on him. He's seems to recover from those injuries. People of Les Saisies, which is where the col gets its name. We came up a road we've never used before. I think Roland is hurting because he was anxious to get Da Costa in front, and he's only just come across the gap.
Yeah, but I think once they recover, once they get over the top of that little incline, they'll be able to collaborate on the descent, and that could be the important part. So this view from the top of the Col de Saisy is one we've seen many times in the Tour de France. And of course, Cézy, a very well-known ski resort nestled right into the chain, or la chaîne des Aravis. The chaîne des Aravis links Albertville over to the other side of the chain when you go down into the town of La Clusaz, and then the Grand Bornand à la Colombière. We're not going that way today, but this little bit of dampness, Phil, which has actually come to wet the road here, could make it quite precarious on the descent.
Chris Froome's nailed it. He said that the descents are very dangerous today, and this is going to make them even more dangerous. So they've got to be careful. Look at the crowds along the road in Les Cézy. The main peloton, less than 40 riders in that group at the moment.
And looking down at that main peloton, Phil, I can't see any rider in the top 10 in the overall standings who's actually missed out on that acceleration that has been applied on this main field by Team Astana. Everyone from Chris Froome right the way down to 9th and 10th place, Louis Meintjes and Dan Martin, who was very clever and astute, Dan Martin, to put his raincoat on inside of the final kilometre, because trying to put a raincoat on going downhill at 50, 60 miles an hour is not a clever idea.
Right, well, we're showing 1:53 as the gap, but they're saying from the race now it's exactly 2 minutes, so the gap beginning to open a little bit. Well, it looks like it is indeed, but oh dear, this is Roland.
Well, you know, Phil, just a few moments ago I was saying it was quite precarious when you change road surface. Look at this. It's very, very slippy, and all of a sudden it can't do anything. It's like ice now. Let's bear in mind, a few moments' time, the main field are going to come to that same point.
Well, Pierre Roland crashed on the same side of his body earlier in the tour, and it was only moments ago I was telling you how he seemed to recover from those injuries, and it's all going to happen again for him. That's really sad. The Frenchman up again in the front group. His team admired him so much. He's such a strong man, both mentally and physically, and he's crashed like that. But the road has become totally glacial, and if you've got your tyres pumped rock hard, then there's no grip at all.
That is the big problem. Also, the difference between the road surfaces. Here you can see we're looking at a slightly older road surface which has been around for some time, but when you go to that newly laid road surface, that's when it really does start to get treacherous.
We're looking at the original front group here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 riders left of the original breakaway of 20. And Roland, even so, was lying off the back of those riders as he went into that corner, so he was clearly not too happy with his descending.
Now's
this
the
is
moment.
The yellow jersey group coming down just now.
Well, there you can see the difference.
This is the corner coming up, I think.
Well, there you saw the difference between the changing of the road surface. That's the corner just a little bit further down where there's a gaggle of people over on the right-hand side.
Well, I wouldn't stand there right now. Roland is still there, the peloton going by. And we're all holding our breaths here, I'll be quite honest with you. Roland is remounting his bike, and he's going to go back after that peloton. Well, I told you how strong he was, both mentally and physically. His team really admire Pierre.
Well, the amazing thing was when he came across to the squad, well, if I may say this without insulting anyone, a typical Frenchman, Phil, he didn't speak any English at all, and he forced himself at the early training camps to learn English so he could really integrate into the squad, and all of a sudden they found him. Just have a look at how hard he went down there. There was nothing you can... When you go into a situation like that and you lose both wheels, I mean, even the best man in the world can't control that. And look how far he slid.
Oh, he's hurting now. Charlie Wagelius is the team director on the left. He's an Englishman born in Finland, and just chatting there, asking him how. He's got under 40 kilometres to go to the finish, but they're not an easy 40 kilometres. One more day in the Alps, and then he's home in Paris.
Sometimes, you know, the Tour de France is not a very fair race when you've made the move like this. We go back to the man that he was with a few moments ago, Rui Costa, who is now on his own and really charging downhill here at some pretty impressive speeds. He's hovering between 80 and 85 kilometers now. That's in excess of 50 miles an hour downhill.
Pierre Rolland has never not finished a Tour de France, and this is his 8th. Won 2 stages in the Alps, Alpe d'Huez and La Toussuire.
Just look at that though now, Phil. All of a sudden you've got the red and black guard moving into the second row there. That's BMC Racing. The third rider in that line was Richie Porte. Long. Yeah.
I tell you, Paul, Richie Porte knows what he has to do, and today he's got to try it, because between him and the place on the podium, he needs 1 minute and 8 seconds.
And between, well, that's for second place, he needs 44.
Well,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he said, Phil. He's made no bones about the fact that his dream is to get second place.
Yep. Well, here he is. Sad sight. We all feel for him. You've pedalled the best part of the race route. He's only a couple of 100 miles or kilometers from Paris.
Yeah, but Phil, when you've been in the breakaway and it looks as if you're vying for a stage victory psychologically, this is really tough to handle.
Needs a little time to recover. That was a bit of a knock. And the guy taking the pictures missed the shot because he jumped out the way. 3 times in the top 10 during his 8 tours, Pierre Rolland. Oh, look at this now down here. Oh, goodness me. Now, that's a nasty piece of slick road as well. It's Rui Costa.
You see how he's using so much of the road, picking across, using the apex. In fact, just slackening off his shoes a fraction there as he starts to make good lines. You were right a little earlier on to talk about the tyre pressure on a day like this, but I think everybody realised there was a big threat on a day like this of having a rainy finish to the stage. Well, I've got approximately a 35-second advantage for Rui Costa over the remnants of his breakaway group, which, just looking a little bit further up, contains Villermoz of France, Pantano, who is about 2 riders from the back, Maika, Navarro, Armel Moinard, the rider from BMC. He's in here, but I think he will have further thoughts later on in the afternoon. Sepulveda managed to get back. George Bennett, I think, is still in this group. Kieselowski, Lutsenko and Tony Galopin. But 35 seconds for Rui Costa. This part of the road he will know well, Phil, because the Tour de France has zigzagged over these climbs, the Chaîne des Aravis, any which way you want over the last few years.
Just wondering now how Chris Froome is feeling on this. Is his worst nightmare. Look at this now as Rui da Costa goes around that corner, uses the full road, doesn't want to lean that bike over too much.
Well, I tell you what, he's doing a pretty impressive job because he's actually extending his advantage. It's now around about 40 seconds over the chasers, and he's taking a lot of risks. And he's got nothing to lose, Phil, from taking the risks on a descent like this, because if he can stretch his advantage over the main peloton, then he starts to be able to dream about a stage victory.
These conditions are really nasty now, and Astana is going to stretch everybody in the race. They haven't eased up at all here. The cloud's obviously spinning up. Not always wet, but it is at this moment in time. And I hadn't noticed in commentary, but the rain has actually started on the finishing line now as well.
Well, it had been promised. I had been watching the weather forecast over the last couple of hours, and it did say that in the latter part of the afternoon the rain would start to pick up. More scary is the fact that there's a possibility of heavy electric and thunderstorms towards the latter part of the afternoon. But hopefully the riders will get themselves in safely to Saint-Gervais in this final climb up here to La Betex, which at the beginning is very, very narrow, and it'll be a big fight to position yourselves to be at the front for the start of the climb.
They're saying 40 seconds. Da Costa is ahead of that chase. We're looking at the peloton. I think we should stay here for a while, because this is where the race to win the Tour de France is, and these conditions are lethal just now. Minute 43. See the amount of distance each rider's putting between the rider in front of him now, just in case he slides out.
Well, that's George Bennett. I was looking for him a little while ago in the yellow jersey of Lotto Jumbo. And I have to say, I think he's had a very good Tour de France, especially in the latter part of the Tour, while we rejoin, as if by the magic of television, the man who leads this race, Rui Costa.
Minute 40, they're saying, to this bunch here, to the leader. So they're only a minute behind that 10-man chase group.
Just get a quick glimpse, Phil, of the speed of Rui Costa. Every time it straightens out, he pushes it back up to 80 kilometers an hour.
And the chasers, I saw 100 come up there.
A little bit of damage now, and important on days like this. Race radio saying there's another crash at the back there, and also going down. I just spotted there briefly number 126, and that was Sebastian Reichenbach. Now, he's high up in the overall standings. He crashed there with a teammate. Well, this is what a lot of the contenders were concerned about, the rain coming down in the Alps, and it can turn the race upside down. All of a sudden, we've got a situation where two of the workers on Team Astana have opened up a big gap over the rest of the main field. Following them are two riders from BMC Racing. Richie Porte. Well, Porte has got a problem as well. They're calling over race radio for Richie Porte's team car to come forward. Well, it looked as if he might have been. Well, that came back to Richie Porte very quickly there, but let's have a quick look at just what happened here. Over there on the right-hand side, that is the crash involving the two riders from Française de Jeu, and they went down pretty hard there. Reichenbach is one of the riders who went down. And I didn't see exactly what happened to Richie Porte, although we did hear it announced on race radio. And he has got 2 or 3 teammates in that group in front. So having a quick look at him here, I can't see any ripped jersey. So it may well be that he was in fact just delayed by that crash a few moments ago. So much happening here on this stage with 30 kilometers to go.
Well, Richie Porte caught in that crash as the rain has become quite torrential just at this minute in time.
Yes, I think he was actually delayed by the crash, Phil, of the two riders from FDJ. He did seem to me as if he stopped at the side of the road, but now he's got the advantage of having a couple of teammates there with him, so they should be able to slow down and pace him back into this group.
Welcome to the like a Cofidis ride. He's the only one in the front group. Pantano doesn't care who it is. We'll go and have a look. But I think it was Daniel Navarro here. Remember, we still have Rui da Costa up front. Well, now he's hoping to be joined. No Spanish stage wins this year yet.
He's also made this move, I think, Phil, because he could sense the moment when the yellow jersey group was about to catch the remnants of the breakaway group, but he's still got to try and bridge a 1-minute gap to Rui Costa.
Costa, 1 minute back is that group we were looking at. 16 seconds behind them as he's moved off the front is now the peloton. And they're trying to stay clear of Richie Porte, and there the breakaway's been swamped because there's Micah and Jorgensen Pantano. Chris Froome's gone by. They're all looking to get back in. Look at that, Micah's still got some legs.
But look how many teammates that Nairo Quintana has in that group as well, Phil. He's still got 3 very good teammates up alongside him. One of those, of course, Alejandro Valverde. Daryl Impey now is turning the books around, but a little bit further back, here is Richie Porte. He's managed to get into the team cars. But I take my hat off, Phil, to Craig van Avermaet this afternoon, because there he is, number 98. He really has survived on a day like this, because he's not in the past been really reputed for being one of the best climbers that Belgium's produced.
He's a big team man. He held the yellow for 3 days. He won a stage, and now his job is to get 91 back into that pack. And what he does after that, nobody will worry about. But there up the corner is the back of that pack.
In front of Richie Porte there was Damiano Caruso, the Italian rider on BMC. And it's funny how the weather conditions are. It's a little bit interspersed, but certainly I can see plenty of umbrellas on the finishing line and plenty of waterproof coats being put on.
Looking down on the BMC chase train. Final kick for the line. And it's Porte himself now who is going to sprint on, and he'll say, thanks, lads. They're back.
Well, you know, I'm not sure that there'll be that much of a problem for Richie Porte because he wasn't actually involved in the accident. He was delayed by the accident, and he used his teammates to pace him back into this group. No panic at all for him, I don't think. The final climb will tell, but I think he's just got so much experience that something like that will not rattle the foundations of an attack later on from Richie Porte. He's shown great form in this last few days, and these look at these corners. They really are very tricky. He is prepared to take all of the risks. The little indicator there, 3 kilometers to the start of the climb now for Rui Costa. And the manager of Team Sky, Dave Brailsford, has said, as everybody knows, there's still 2 days to go in this Tour de France. Chris Froome feels in a strong position, but, you know, on a day like this with weather conditions and road conditions like this, Phil, anything could happen.
And it has. We've seen so many riders fall off, and we've seen the abandon of Tom Dumoulin and Michael Scherl. This is the rider cautiously... Oh, no, there's another crash. Oh, that is a nasty fall. 3 riders hitting the deck there.
Well, I'm hearing that Navarro is one of the riders who went down. Let's just have a look at this as we come into the corner. As I told you, these were tricky corners. That looks to me as if the first rider to go down was Eduardo Sepulveda, the Argentinian rider. On the far side, that's Navarro, the rider in the red jersey, and the race doctor is there up alongside him. That's Danny Navarro. Oh, no, there's another rider gone off the road too there. And it was a rider from Trek Segafredo. Now look, straight on, it just can't control his machine. He's got the back wheel locked up, and he just managed to stop before he exited the route. Wow.
Well, we are hearing the Froome has crashed. We have got no pictures yet. And there he is on the road. Froome has fallen.
Well, this is the one thing that everybody who leads a race like the Tour de France has to be afraid of. And he's going to... In fact, his bike must be seriously damaged because he's swapping machines with a teammate and he's off riding again.
And look at his team all around him as they came round. They were amazed, but they're so cleverly drilled. They knew exactly what to do. Froome away, and the peloton is still descending.
Well, it's all about, Phil, having a plan. And let's have a quick look, and a number of... Look at that. You see, Phil, and you put a little bit of moisture on it, it's almost impossible to hold your bike upright.
Well, I'm not sure, but I think that was Dario Aru with him. It looked like a 7 on Aru.
Well, I'm hearing that Bardet has in fact come out of the front of the main field as well now to join his teammate Scherl. He's in second wheel there as they start to go through Domoncy. Now, this is the opposite way that they were racing yesterday. Wow.
Well, we think that was Vincenzo Nibali who crashed with Chris Froome at that time. Froome is now not on his bike. I think he's on the bike of Mikel Nieve here as he's gone back up to his teammates.
Well, let's put it into perspective a little bit, Phil. He's got 3 minutes 52 seconds at the start of the day over Bauke Mollema, who's also had at least one crash on that descent, and I'm not getting any information on the position of Bauke Mollema. Yeah. And I think he, in fact, was involved in a second accident going around one of the corners. Here we go. Well, it looks as if that could have been Bauke Mollema there, because that was a couple of riders from Trek Segafredo.
Well, the rain has had its say in the Tour de France today. This man is still clear. 10 kilometers to go for Rui Ferreira da Costa. Give him his full name. Hey, there is the yellow jersey of Chris Froome. He fell heavily on his side there. He's up against it, but he's got time to climb onto the podium in Paris.
Sad to hear, Phil. I'm just hearing that the abandon has happened there. As we see this little move of Bardet almost touching the wheel of his teammate in front. I'm just hearing that Danny Navarro has had to abandon because of that accident on the descent of the Côte de Domoncy.
Well, he did look injured, and the doctors stayed a while with him, so they've obviously pulled him from the race. Let's hope he's okay. As the peloton is trying desperately to get itself together. The boys of Sky are here. Number 5 is Nieve.
Well, it was Kirienka doing a big turn on the front to pull Chris Froome back into this group. The other rider up there was the faithful Lieutenant at Woutpoels. They're just about to make the junction, Phil, before the start of this climb. The maillot jaune, the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, is seriously ripped up.
We're looking at the youngster here, Romain Bardet. He is gaining most today as he goes out onto this stage sitting in 5th place. And he's gaining time now because Chris Froome is occupied trying to rejoin that very select chase group. Of the other riders overall, Yates, Quintana, Bardet, Mollema, they are spread out behind, but I don't think they're all together right now.
No, still the race situation. One leader is Rui Costa, but at just 41 seconds behind him is Romain Bardet, who is the Frenchman, Phil, who was also dreaming at the start of the day of a podium position.
Well, we're looking at the faithful team gathering around the Queen Bee there, because the yellow jersey may be damaged, but it's certainly full of fight, and there's no doubt about that. But the question is, where is number 61, Bauke Mollema? Because I thought I saw him go through the bushes.
I'm pretty sure it was him. He is currently off the back.
Adam Yates is here.
Yeah, up to the left-hand side in the white jersey, number 209. He looks reasonably comfortable. Slipping back, I noticed Steph Clement, the former Dutch national time trial champion. The question mark is, can Chris Froome, in this chaos at the moment, even risk changing machines and getting back onto his own machine when the team car eventually manages to catch up with him?
Well, Froome there, he always looks as though he's under pressure, and he rarely is, but he has that bowed approach to riding his bike. The team have been simply fantastic for him today. We're getting on to the last climb of the day, remember, which takes us up to 1,372 metres, and the finish.
Well, I'm hearing now, Phil, that Romain Bardet is just 30 seconds off the lone leader, Rui Costa. So the French could be getting not only a stage victory out of today's stage, but they could also be getting a man climbing onto the podium.
Well, he deserves it because he's been a most aggressive rider in this bike race, and he said this morning before the start he'll look for an opportunity and he'll go for it. Well, the opportunity fell in his lap in the rain. There he is.
And he is a very good bike handler. We've seen it on a number of occasions, maybe a little brash on occasions too, when he's taken advantage of the downhill parts of the course. And the fact that he's just passing the team curve there of Rui Costa indicates that very shortly he will have the former world champion from Portugal well in his sights.
He sits 4:57 behind Froome. Of course, he's gaining some of that, but Froome won't be too worried about that at the moment. But people like Richie Porte will be certainly worried. Nairo, Quintana, they stand to lose their places tonight to this man.
Well, they certainly do, but let's think about Froome. He's got a 4-minute and 16-second advantage over Adam Yates, and for the moment I'm still getting information that Bauke Mollema is off the back of this yellow jersey group. Froome, I'm sure, Phil, would like to have his team car come back up alongside him and try and get back onto his own machine.
Just 5 miles left to end this stage, 8.7 kilometres. That's all that's left. The cars in irregularly aren't supposed to go near the riders on the climb now. It's a climb to the finish. You can't feed them, touch them, speak to them. It's now man for man. Well, Costa on the front.
Sorry, Phil, there was that confirmation. It's 29 seconds separating these two riders. Last year, Romain Bardet was a joint leader of his squad, and this year he came as the sole leader for AG2R. Just there, you can see him just in the background. I caught a quick glimpse of the AG2R jersey. He has now got Rui Costa well in his sights.
He's seen his chance and he's taken it. It's not a question of attacking when there's a man down. This has been a one-for-all race today, and Bardet has ridden it brilliantly. Mike is still in the mix here, despite that long breakaway. Still looking very cool at the back, number 37.
Well, Froome, you can never really tell there when you look at his number 6 got his hand up there. Woutpoels.
In our shot there too, Louis Menkes.
When a rider puts his hand up like that, Phil, he's calling to the race referee to call the team car forward, and I'm pretty sure that's to try and favourite to the movement up through the convoy of Team Sky to try and get Chris Froome back to one of his original machines.
Exactly, because he's about to go onto the mountain on a strange bike here, that of number 9, Geraint Thomas.
Well, what a quick call, though, Phil, by Geraint Thomas, who was up alongside him. The first thing, you see, that's why you have to have a plan in a moment like this. You have to know exactly what you were going to do. And maybe for Team BMC, they never really had that plan. When Richie Porte had a similar, well, he had a flat tyre, but there was nobody to pass him a bike as they ran into the final few kilometres of stage number 2.
Porte is riding second red jersey at the front here now, and this was to be a test bed for Richie Porte today. But the man he would likely pass in the overall classification, because he trailed him by only 3 seconds, Bardet, is off up the road here trying to get on the podium in Paris. Weather and attacks. The yellow jersey in trouble here. His right side of his jersey is ripped to shreds. We're hearing, did I hear 1:25 behind for Bauke Mollema? Here he is in our camera. He's now trying to get back. You don't deserve that sort of look when you've worked so hard, but Mollema's having to fight back, and he's only 7.5 kilometres from the top, slightly more. He crashed on that descent of the Côte de Domancy.
Well, he crashed once there, Phil. Then he was starting to take a few risks to try and get himself back into the yellow jersey group, and he crashed again. But also, Chris Froome went down on that same descent, and he very quickly received a bike from his teammate, Geraint Thomas. That is the machine that he's currently riding as we get closer to the finish. Still, there's a long way to go, Phil. A lot of climbing left to do, 7.3 kilometres. That's still almost 5 miles of climbing till we get to the finish.
Well, Bauke Mollema is out of the top 5 places in the Tour de France. He would slip to 6th at least if he doesn't close that gap at the moment. It would put Yates up into 2nd place, Quintana into 3rd, and Bardet, the rider we're watching now, into 4th. And it might even be that Bardet would go up into 3rd or 2nd if he continues like this. Boy, if French voices can pull you over a mountain now, it'll work for Romain Bardet.
Also starting to move up there, I notice Purito, Joaquim Rodriguez, Dan Martin moving to the front of that group. But this man, you have to feel a bit sorry for the man who has been sitting in 2nd place overall throughout the whole of this last week of the race, and he robbed maybe of a podium position because of first of all a nasty climb, and then an almost exiting of the road, trying to catch up.
Just got a real good shout from a Dutch encampment there, shouting Bauke, Bauke, to try and get him through on that corner. Is it going to be where Froome decides? Because they've opened a gap on Froome here, and Richie Porte, if he's and look at this, Quintana's closing the gap. That's not an attack, that's to go with the move. And that's what Quintana has done throughout this race. He's never attacked.
Well, Wout Poels there, Phil, just looked over his shoulder and he just waited for the yellow jersey. Let's not forget the yellow jersey is not riding his own personal machine. He's riding Geraint Thomas's machine that was passed across to him. Quintana, though, Phil, was very attentive. He saw the acceleration, he saw the gap.
The Frenchman who could be climbing to 2nd overall in the Tour de France tonight. A terrific attack by Romain Bardet, the face of Caruso here. He's trying to put Richie Porte into a point where he could try and attack, because he's not going to climb up much if he doesn't.
Well, Caruso, they have said, is one of the best helpers on BMC for Richie Porte here. He's turned out to, well, we've been through the Savoie region and we've been through Switzerland. He's turning out to be the Saint Bernard, the big dog that looks after people in the mountains, and that's certainly what Caruso has turned out to be. Barguil has now been dropped off the back of the group.
He might come back. He's pedaling quite smoothly, but he's been yo-yoing off the back for quite a while, actually. He might get back on there. Let's go up to the 2 leaders. No, this is Bauke Mollema here. He's got a good pacemaker now in Jorgensen Pantano. He needed to meet somebody of this quality on the climb, but he's dropping away from it.
Well, I've got Bauke Mollema 1 minute and 15 seconds off the back of the yellow jersey group, and 1 3/4 minutes, Phil, off the back of the leaders on the road. Dan Martin's just gone over the top. I just noticed the black and blue jersey of Ethics Quickstep. He is in 10th place overall at the start of the day, and he's looking to try and move up. He's only 3 seconds behind Louis Meintjes in the overall standings.
And he might well get this, because we've also got at the front, Barguet's just gone. He's left, and he's left at 3.2 kilometres from the finish. Remember, the winner gets a 10-second added bonus to his time for the day, and that could consolidate his time. This is a great effort by the Frenchman.
Well, that, Phil, is because they're getting into the steepest part of the climb again. They're up to around about 9.5%. This is a very difficult climb. Wout Poels just looks over his shoulder. He will try and nurse Chris Froome up this climb if he can. And, whoa, I thought that was going to be a move by Froome.
This is Port. Port looks across. Cantana's marking Port. Cantana's after him immediately. And a reaction, though, from Sky, but they take a little time to get into the rhythm. They don't lift the pace too much. Up to 3 kilometres from the finish, Romain Bardet is out to make the gains that could put him on the podium in Paris.
Well, Richie Porte now sees this as an opportunity. Quintana also moving up to second position. The Sky Riders now, Phil, they're looking over their shoulders. They've got to nurse their leader. You have to remember, he's still got a good buffer over everybody else in the overall standings, while all of a sudden, Wout Poels comes up to the front there ahead of Sergio Henao.
Zakharine going through in the red jersey here, right alongside. Meintjes in that mauvish top to his jersey there. Rui Costa now split, as this is Dan Martin now gaining ground and climbing over Meintjes in the overall classification.
Well, it's a strange style of Dan Martin, a bouncing style that keeps the pedals going round quite rapidly. His distance behind Romain Bardet is not much more than about 30 seconds, so he too now can start to dream about a stage victory for Ireland.
And Adam Yates is in trouble. Adam Yates. And this is another gain today, possibly for Louis Meintjes, because he went inside 3 minutes yesterday after the time trial, because he beat Adam in the time trial. And also unhitching now is Michael Landa.
Well, unhitching a little bit further on as well is the yellow jersey, as now the reaction coming from Joachim Rodriguez to try and chase down Dan Martin.
And this is Bauke Mollema here. He's unhitched, actually, from Jolinson Pantano. So the big effort has really hurt Bauke, and it's going to reflect in a big time loss tonight. But if Rodriguez goes forward here, and it certainly is Rodriguez, they've caught Martin. The effort to catch Martin also caught Chris Froome, but he's got back.
Impressive ride by the South African, though, Phil, because Louis Meintjes has moved right onto the wheel of Rodriguez. And Fabio Aru, well, the man we expected to attack, he's scrambling to stay in contact with Chris Froome.
How this race changed over the last 50 kilometres today with the weather, I might add. And out the front has popped a Frenchman who's converting a 5th place overall to a possible 2nd place tonight. Terrific piece of riding. As we're watching now Chris Froome riding his teammate's bike, just hanging in with these boys. This situation at the start of the day was 3:52 back, 2nd place Mollema, 4:16 to Yates, 4:37 to Quintana, 4:57 to Bardet. Bardet's recuperated all of his time lost, except, of course, to the yellow jersey.
Well, Phil, as if to say, I might have been down, but I'm certainly not out. Chris Froome in the yellow jersey comes up alongside his teammate Wout Poels there in the blue sky jersey on the right-hand side, saying, it's okay, I'm all right. Let's show these guys that I've still got the power that's taken me to 1st place overall. Quintana over to the left-hand side in the Movistar jersey with his sunglasses into his helmet. But Adam Yates...
This is Yates trying to just... No, he's not panicking here. He's going to ride himself back on. He's come back up to them. They've all tried to get some time and tried to reach Bardet. They've all failed, but Port is going to try once more. At 2 kilometres to go, he kicks again.
And look who's responded immediately onto the wheel of Richie Porte is Nairo Quintana. Quintana was waiting for this last week. He's talked about the last week, and Richie Porte knows today it's important for him. He's looking for 1:08 to try and climb up into 2nd place overall, 44 seconds if he can get onto the podium, and that's what he wants after these 2 days of racing.
Well, on the left-hand side, looks as though Fabio Aru there was just trying as Yates is, well, the elastic stretched again. Louis Meintjes still up near the front of this group as Yates tries to get onto the back. These last few days are proving pretty hard. Aru has gone now. He's put in an attack. He's got to attack after all the work his teammates have done today. They did it for him. Now he's got to gain something out of this stage.
Well, that's what he wants. That's why his team, Astana, did so much work over the majority of today's stage to toughen it up for this final climb of the day. He wants the stage victory, but he's got an awful lot of time to try and pull back on the leader, Romain Bardet. He's looking for around about 43 seconds. Port gets out of the saddle, Phil, just to try and nail back those final few meters, but brilliant riding by Louis Meintjes there from South Africa to sit there in fourth position. Froome, on the other hand, he's still on the defensive.
The Frenchman, Romain Bardet, is being drawn to this finishing line now by the crowd. No French victory yet in this year's Tour de France. Costa goes back towards the group. Aru is coming back to try and get to him, using him as a carrot. Yates is just about hanging on by the skin of his racing shorts.
Well, talk about courage. The rider who leads the best young rider competition, he just yo-yoing on the back. He finds the courage every now and again to scramble back into contact. He wants to make sure, Phil, that he can stay on the podium in Paris. Yes, he'd like to win the best young rider competition, but he wants to be on the podium with all of the big names of the sport of professional cycling.
Well, the face of Da Costa says it all now. Aru is making a late dash for the line here. There's not a lot of time left. A few seconds is all he can hope for. This is Bardet at 1 kilometre to go.
Well, it's Purito Rodriguez now coming forward. On his wheel is Alejandro Valverde. Louis Meintjes is right up there as well, and right on their wheel is Nairo Quintana.
And Louis Meintjes here making more gains on Adam Yates in that white jersey competition. This has been his best day in the Tour de France as he heads up to the line, 23 seconds down, so they close right in on him.
Well, where is Chris Froome? Here he is, Phil. Let's not forget, he did have a big buffer at the start today, 3:52 over second place. The clock there, he's lost 37 seconds on the winner of the stage, so maybe 10 or 12 seconds on everyone else, but that is a reflection of bon courage.
A horrible day. Here's Port. He also lost time in the end. And Adam Yates at the back here losing time. He needs to lose 2:59 on Meintjes, and he's not losing that. But Meintjes continues to close in and climb up the overall. Well, amazing scenes at the finishing line. And Chris Froome, well, he thanked his teammates immediately. He came over that finishing line, and he's finished on a strange bike. It must have been his worst day in the Tour de France, that.
Well, we're now waiting for the man who started, as we see Romain Bardet in the celebrations for AG2R La Mondiale and for France. I just wonder where, Phil, Bauke Mollema is.
Well, we'll find out, but I think they came up too quick for the winner to go second overall.
Well, he was waiting for the information to come through to him well down the slopes here, and you wouldn't wish this on anybody really, not just one crash but multiple crashes for Bauke Mollema. Started the day second place in the overall standings. He is losing a huge chunk of time here. Well, at the moment I have him around about 2:09 behind the winner, but 1 minute and 34 seconds behind the yellow jersey, and the clock is still counting for Bauke Mollema. These 2 days, everybody talked about them. Everyone said after the rest day, the final few days of racing in the Tour de France were going to be spectacular. Well, if tomorrow, because we've got to do a very similar race route tomorrow to this one today, and you can still see on the left hand side there his shorts are ripped open from that crash, but today finally is a day that belongs to France. Well, it was Rodriguez got across the line there in second place, Valverde third, Louis Meintjes of South Africa in fourth position at 22 seconds, and also right up there as well, Nairo Quintana fifth, Fabio Aru in sixth place.
This was in second spot at 23 seconds, then Valverde, and what a ride by the young South African Louis Meintjes. Quintana showing what we've been accustomed to, almost a better ride today. He was in fifth. Aru, Martins and Piles, Wout Piles, what a ride by him, the ultimate teammate for Chris Froome. And Richie Porte, he has to concede that this was a day of disappointment for Richie Porte, but he had some bad luck against him. So too did others, and then the legs cracked in the final kilometre or so. Position Valverde into seventh, Louis Meintjes up into eighth, Dan Martin in ninth position, and Mollema has gone from second to 10th. It's the final day of racing in the mountains, and with the drama of yesterday providing a hint as to what we can expect today, anything can still happen. The race for the podium is wide open, and as Chris Froome keeps on saying, it's not over until Paris. Stage 20, and it's the last big battle before Paris. It starts in Megève, but makes its way through to Morzine, 146.5 kilometres, and it's littered with climbs and barely any flat roads. The final climb is the last one of this year's tour. It's over the top of the Jeu Flamme, and then they plummet down to the finish line. There'll be strength required and also courage. Hello and welcome to Megève, where the stage is getting underway. We're just a few minutes before the neutral start and they roll out. It's the 20th stage, and then it's on to Paris tomorrow, where there will be celebration for the yellow jersey, and will it be Chris Froome? Matthew Keenan with you, joined by Robbie McEwen. And Robbie, for Chris Froome, yesterday was just another reminder of the cliche. It's not over until Paris.
And Chris Froome has been the man who's repeated those words more than anybody in this Tour de France. Even when he got out to a 4-minute plus lead on second place, a lot of people were saying it's been run and won. Chris Froome is one of the ones that wouldn't accept that phrase, and yesterday turned out to be very true.
It did. We're going to pay a minute's silence now to mark our respects to the victims of the awful attack yesterday in Munich.
Ce qui s'est déroulé hier donc dans la localité de Munich en Allemagne. Une minute de silence sur la ligne ici à Megève. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. We are going to mark 1 minute of silence and homage out of respect for the victims and all the families affected by the tragedy in the location of Munich, Germany yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute of silence.
Disappointed yesterday when Pierre Roland crashed. He thought if he had him with him, he might have been in business. Michael Matthews is there. Jesper Stuyven is at the back. Just trying to hold on at this point in his debut Tour de France. Another reaction coming, and this time it's courtesy of Astana and Cannondale Drapac. They want to be in the thick of it today.
Well, realistically, Matt, this is the last chance for guys to really get away and have a chance at a stage win from a big escape. Because once you get into Paris, we often see a few skirmishes, little groups off the front, but more often than not, they get caught as a big bunch sprint in Paris. It's only every sort of 10 years that they stay away. Might be due for another one. I think the last escape was 2005 that stayed away on the Champs-Élysées.
Alexander Vinokurov. Up the Vichot now trying to go across. One of the most famous ones, though, 22 years ago, Eddie Seigneur. It was a brilliant win. Really defied the sprinters. It is TJ Van Garderen with Warren Barguil. Nice pickup. The American, there's a group also on top of him. In fact, it's the peloton that's on top of him. But a nice sign of the character TJ Van Garderen after a disappointing few days to try and bounce back. And we can say the same for the Frenchman Warren Barguil. He's had a tough race. He was hoping for top 10 overall. He's in 18th position, but he was solid yesterday. And full of praise for his compatriot Romain Bardet, who won the stage.
These two really struggling to go try and get that gap over the peloton, being led by Lotto Soudal, who already have a rider up in the group in front. So they just want to shut this down and maybe not let the likes of Van Garderen go across, although I'm not sure why they'd be concerned so much with him. Here is is the front of the race.
This is Vakoc at the back for the NX Quickstep team. It is Calderman in the yellow colours, Chavanel in the black and yellow. It is Benedetti from the Bora Argon 18 team and Ed A of Cofidis. Just 23 seconds and the peloton's not letting them slip up the road. 15 kilometres before they get to the bottom of the first climb, and it's pretty quick getting there. There's a little interruption with a small climb on the way.
And that's where I think we'll see the break of the day really form. We've got these 5 off the front at the moment with a 25-second lead over the peloton. No news yet or pictures of that group in between. There they are. Here's the pictures. So that group has made it across. 26 seconds now to the main group. This is shaping up to be the one. They're going to really have to push over that little hill, which comes at about 8 or 7 kilometres into the race. So this is it now. They're on. Last chance to get across.
And there's one more trying to come across from Bora Argon 18. And a whole bunch of riders with teammates represented up the front who are trying to close things down. This is the last reaction with anybody trying to make it across.
And this is Jeffrey Soup, I think, from the Cofidis team.
Cyril Limois. We'll have a closer look next time through.
They're all growing beards at Cofidis this day. It makes it hard to pick them out.
Soup's got the full beard. He's not into 5 o'clock shadows. He's your 10 p.m. kind of guy.
Michael Matthews, 2 days in a in a row, making it into the breakaway.
Or has he? Because this looks like Sebastian Reichenbach from FDJ, who's been riding very well. Been climbing strongly, 14th position overall at 21 minutes down. Big reaction. Adam Hansen also amongst it in the red colours of Lotto Soudal. Robert Kichalowski is there once again from the Tinkoff team. He's been very active the last few days. Big reaction coming from the peloton. It's proving difficult to get away because, as you mentioned before, this is the last big battle. With the exception of the sprinters, will be thinking about saving some energy for tomorrow, but they're the only ones.
Everyone else under instruction to get up the road, go with the brakes, go with the attacks. And it's this little hill that we mentioned. It's the one that could shape the breakaway if someone can ride away out of this group and maintain. Still got a good gap, but still riders trying to come across it. Someone from Tinkoff there in the background, maybe Kichalowski again. Very active yesterday.
It was 22 seconds. Tony Galopin knows that it's going to take some work to get this group going. So he's adopted the Thomas de Gent strategy. On the front for 5 minutes, 500 watts. See what happens.
It's a moment where you've just really got to commit to it. Not think about saving energy right now, but actually making the break work. So just sit on the front, maintain that gap over this hill, and hope then that they sit. Now they're going to come towards that category 2, another little uphill before they hit the foot, so it's still another opportunity for riders to come across out of the peloton.
Katusha in the breakaway, Ilnar Zakarin, he's already managed to win a stage, on the hunt for number 2. The peloton has closed things down on them.